Indian rupee has ended flat at 60.14 to the dollar. On your screens, you have seen only 3 paise of a movement coming in yet again after a very choppy, strong day that you have seen. The dollar has been strong and you have seen strength in the equity markets. But even then, it comes on the back ahead of the release of US Fed minutes, which is really spooking the Indian currency at this point in time. Vijay, how have you seen the rupee movement? Because we started on a stronger note, almost 0.5% on the higher side, and from there on, it's been a proper slide.
Absolutely, Manisha. In spite of the strength in the equities market, the 60 level on the USD INR is acting as a deterrent for any further appreciation for the rupee. And a day before yesterday, I talked about the remaining part of the week remaining fairly range bound, with 59.80 on one side and 60.80 on the other. I don't think there's anything in the data pipeline which could modify that view. I think you're likely to be constrained within that 90 paise to 1 rupee move. And my guess is also because of the first phase of the elections being kicked in, the 60 level or 59.80 level might act as a support for the USD INR, and traders are showing signs of trying to buy the dips with a clear intention of booking out at 0.5% to 0.75% bump up technically. So here again I would try and seek buy opportunities at lower levels.
Vijay, what's your sense also on the dollar index, because that is an area that has been holding around that 80 or below 80 mark?
The dollar index, one needs to watch the 79.80 level fairly keenly. Now, 79.80 is a threshold that will attract a lot of bull and bear activity. If at all the dollar index was to sustain below 79.80, my guess is 79.35 is in the offing. And like I've been pointing out, it's the dollar versus the euro which is likely to determine the short-term trend in the dollar. The euro is showing signs of interest at lower levels, but one needs to watch whether the 1.39 level on the euro will be taken out. Once that is done, my guess is the euro will start to show some signs of clear strength, which might sustain for the next couple of trading sessions, if not for a week or so. So I would be interested in buying the euro vis-a-vis the dollar at 1.3575 or 1.3600 levels.
All right, that's a view coming in from currencies, but let's also get on board Vishnu Varathan, who's senior economist from Mizuho Bank, and he joins us from Singapore. Vishnu, hi. What is your sense on the Indian rupee as the elections kickstart in the country now? Because much of the rally that we have seen in equities, also currency has been ahead of that.
I think the Indian rupee is turning out to be a very interesting trade. For one, I think the directional trade has turned in our view. We have been quite bullish on the Indian rupee and calling for sub 58 by the end of this year. That came almost within striking distance, but equally I think the central bank RBI's Dr. Rajan wants to manage the pace of hot flows, so he's indicating that 55 could look overvalued at this point. So we want to look at it from a trade weighted basis, and I think the RBI is a lot more comfortable with gradual gains in the rupee, and with the current account also set to narrow and be in that kind of trend where it becomes more positive. We think that rupee will go to sub 58. But in the meantime, hold on to your seats, because while elections are turning out to be more of a tailwind for the rupee, if gold imports come back on and the current account deficit re-widens, it could also stall the momentum. So it's going to be a bit bumpy now, but we are quite firm with our sub 58 view.
Clear point there, Vishnu. As you said, it's going to be bumpy, and there are too many things to watch out for, including the gold import, if that is eased, of course, the curbs there, and elections being the major trigger. But how would you look at the currency trading now for this quarter and also for the rest of FY15?
I think FX trading is going to be quite whippy in these markets for two reasons. I think one is the dollar view, the broad dollar view is not coming through very consistently. At some points, we're going to see a strong dollar. At some points, we see it capitulating when yields move back. So that's going to set one of the tones. And the other thing is, I think markets are also sizing up how far Asian currencies can go. On that perspective, because we see a slow exports recovery, generally we think that will translate into current account recovery that will be gradual. So there's not going to be much headroom. And for now, while China is depreciating its currency, I think it will also take a bit of a back seat. But Asian currencies, we think, will come back into the fore later this year. So that's how we think this year will pan out. A bit volatile now, and some strength in Asian currencies late this year.
Vishnu, while you have mentioned the Indian rupee and Asia and of course Chinese currency as well, what's your sense now coming in for the Japanese yen? Because there's lots that happening there. The Japanese data, the slowdown. There are reports from Bank of Japan saying that the economy will recover moderately as a trend. What's your take on that part of the world?
Well, we think today's BOJ meeting was pretty much spectator sport, really because the BOJ is watching how things develop. While the BOJ, I think, is saying that the outlook is quite bright and it's improved at least, that does not rule out the possibility or, in fact, the high probability of another round of stimulus coming through, because we think that a lot of the consumption was brought forward ahead of the sales tax. So when that begins to weaken, and the fact that I think corporates are not investing enough, so capex is still quite low, I think that would actually mean that the BOJ would be inclined to do more, not less. And that should translate into yen getting into the 105, 110 range for the dollar yen into the end of this year. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at BOJ, allowing and acknowledging some improvement in the economy, but that doesn't mean it's dropped the baton on stimulating the economy further.
Fair point on that, Vishnu. But Vijay, getting you in for that as well. When he says 105 to 110 on the Japanese yen, how would you look at then the calculations on the dollar going forward from here?
Manisha, the yen is likely to remain subdued vis-a-vis the INR also. And ironically, I would still seek buy opportunities on the yen, although at significantly lower levels. And unfortunately, here again, the yen is the least liquid and the least depth currency pair vis-a-vis the rupee on the Indian currency derivative segment. So if at all I see another rupee and a half decline on the JPY INR, I would start to seek buy opportunities on the JPY INR. As far as the yen impacting the dollar in India, I think it will be the euro versus the dollar that will have a more profound impact on the USD INR rather than JPY INR.
Vijay, one final question on the long term in case of the rupee, because even now we are hearing a huge range that continues for the currency there. As you heard Vishnu, he was talking about sub 58 levels in this year itself. Are you looking at that kind of an appreciation? Because of course there have been levels of 55 as well from many other bankers.
Manisha, a week ago I talked about revising my outlook from the support of the dollar shifting from 60 to 58 to maybe 58 and a half. I would not venture beyond 58 to 58.50 at this point in time, because the election might turn out to be a very outlier kind of a wild card trigger for the currency. We have unfortunately no metrics to forecast with any amount of certainty as to what the political outcome will be. So at this point in time, I would say 58 and a half on the downside for the US dollar. The upsides are likely to be fairly capped also at 63 levels. So if at all you see 3% to 4% rally in the dollar in any given week, I would seek short selling opportunities on the USD INR. But I'm not expecting 58 and a half in the absolute near term. Maybe after the elections, maybe after 16th of May, quite possibly so.